All right, well, welcome again, everyone. This is the monthly session for PMI WIC. So this is our last session before we go on break for the summer, and then we'll be back in September. So, all right, with that said, we'll start out with an update on our membership.
All right, great. Yeah, so we have 2 new members since May, Emily and Jake. So I don't know if they're with us tonight, but you guys know them or see them around, welcome them. It's always great to have new members. And it's also great to have people who stick around. So the next slide, I think, is our anniversaries. There are, we won't list all the folks, but we've got some in each category, right? 1, 5, 10, and even a 15-year anniversary this month. So it's great to have people sticking around and renewing because the 1 years are still with us. So I think that's it on that. And we have 2 new certifications since May, a CAPM and a PMP. So that's also great that people are continuing to get new certifications. So congratulations to you too. And the members raffle. So the May winner is Barbara Malone. In order to get into the May raffle, you had to be either a new or renewed member for that month, or any new PMI certifications. And the monthly special criteria for May was to have participated in the Idaho Food Bank community event. So if you were in any of those categories, you were part of the drawing, and Barbara won.
Hey, Craig, this is Cheryl. Did you want to tell folks a little background about Barbara?
I don't know a whole lot about.
She was one of our founding. She was one of our founding board. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
No, 30 plus years ago, she was one of our founding board members out of, I think there were 30 folks, and she was on the actual original board. And so Barbara is a longtime member of our organization, and she's still a member, still active. And in fact, if you go out, for those of us on the board who have access to the chapter reporting system, it shows Barbara is still our mentor for the entire chapter. So that was pretty awesome to see Barb. Hadn't seen her in years, and she looks amazing. Great. She's doing great. Yeah.
That's great.
All right, so it's always good to go back and have people stick around that long and be a winner of the drawing. So the June drawing, we will have a drawing. I'm going to do it before we go dark, and we're going to include anybody at our annual meeting. So if you were there, you're going to be part of that drawing here in probably in a few days. So I'll let you know if you want.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. We did go over this in the annual meeting, but I think it's good for us to just touch base on this for anyone who might not have been there. Colleen, I don't know if you want to speak to this.
Sure, I can take this. So we, as you know, had our elections last month, and starting July 1st, we're going to have some new board members joining us. We have Michelle Marshall. She'll be joining the board in the role of VP of Marketing and Publicity. And then we have Carlene Horton, who will be joining the board in the role of VP Stations, taking over from Cheryl. Michelle will be taking over from Karen Hardesty. Then transitioning board members, Karen will be transitioning to the VP of Membership. Cheryl will go into the VP of Professional Development role. Board on the president track, and he's been elected as our president-elect for the coming year. I will move into the president's role, and Janelle will move into the past president's role. We have 2 outgoing board members, and we'd like to thank them, Vicki Smith and Dave Wilson, for their contributions, and We hope to see them back either on another board position or in a volunteer role, but still connected with the chapter. But thank you very much, Vicki and Dave, for everything you've done for the chapter. And these changes will all take effect July 1st. Welcome to the new board members. Congratulations to the transitioning ones, and thank you to the outgoing board members.
Great. I think this is just a deeper view of what you just.
Sure, this is just more of an org chart view of the new board, which will be in effect starting July 1st. So you'll have Janelle in the past president. I will become the president. Craig will join us as president-elect. And then we have Carlene and her team of, she has a technology team and a communications team with George, Rod, and as volunteers. Becky Tomek stays on as our VP of Finance. Michelle Marshall comes in new as our VP of Marketing and Publicity. And Lord Jean Rispens is our marketing coordinator. And we have an opening here for sponsorship lead on the marketing and publicity team. So if anyone's interested, see Michelle Marshall. Karen Hardesty will move into the VP of membership role, and she works under her as Ben Williams, volunteer coordinator. He coordinates all of our volunteer events. And then Cheryl, of course, will move into the VP of Professional Development, which is a hefty role. Cheryl works with our Lunch and Learn coordinator, Brian Russell, our PMI Education Foundation liaison, Remy Pulikar, our military liaison, Stephen Hill, and our boot camp volunteers, Chris and Annette Steiger. So Cheryl's going to be taking over. You're going to see a lot of new stuff coming out of some of our educational offerings this year. And Cheryl's going to lead us through the new offerings. So, and then Tanisha, you'll stay on board. Thank our programs, our VP of programs, and you have your volunteer team, Aaron Hutchison and Ben Rogers, contributing on helping you out with the events. So that is our lineup for the new year, which begins July 1st. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much, Colleen.
You bet.
All right. We are on social media. So I don't know if, Karen, you want to jump in here?
Sure. Just the monthly plug for our Facebook group. I'm sure if you've been to our events in the past several months, you're probably tired of hearing about this every month, the same old spiel. But if you are on Facebook, please join us here. Again, we have a lot of good information out there, information about all of our events. If I keep up with email, there are a lot of things that are posted out here, like our knowledge drops and soon to be project bites. And again, if you have any questions about project management, feel free to post those out there. If you were in the annual meeting, you've seen that we have a lot of experience in this in our group, in our membership. And so, again, if you have questions, I'm sure someone will have an answer. So please join us out there.
Thanks. All right, and then communication and technology.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier in the annual meeting, our technology update is that our PMI WIC website is moving to a microsite, and it will be hosted by PMI. We're hoping to complete this process within the week. Might even be able to send out some communications on this by Friday this week. We'll see. So the new site, of course, will live on the PMI platform, which is great because there'll be direct links with PMI in terms of logging into your My PMI portal, also having live connections to updates with PMI, like exploring PMI and grow and develop with PMI. Those will be links within our website that we don't maintain, and those will be updated live, which will be great. And so, yeah, really looking forward to that. And it looks so sharp, you guys. So can't wait to show that to everybody. And then hopefully later this summer, fingers crossed, Carlene's sweating bullets over this one. Migrating our back office operations away from Google's G Suite and moving over to MS365. We're still hopeful, targeted for August 31st. Again, heavy lift here. So we'll see. It's a little slow going, and we're trying to work through some of the details in terms of moving everything over from G Suite to MS365. There's devil's always in the details, right? So yeah, fingers crossed, guys. Yeah, and always looking for assistance on this. And I know Carlene, taking over this position, will be able to recruit from her circle of friends and circle of colleagues. But for anyone who's listening and attending the meeting tonight, there's always room for assistance and help with communications and technology. So let us know.
All right, and then this is just a look at the financial picture as of May 31st. There still has not been very much of a shift here because mostly everything has been virtual. And so we expect to see some changes in this as we move forward. And when we come back in September, at least from October going forward, we will be doing in-person events. So we will be experiencing some changes in the finances as we go forward. So it's been great that we've been able to save and put away a little nest egg. All right, here's some things that are coming up in September. We do have a lunch and learn on deck here for September. So this lunch and learn is to talk about why it's important to take care of yourself. So that's a really important one.
It is. And Tanisha, if you want, Brian's actually with us tonight. If you'd like him to speak.
Okay. I don't see him. Sorry. Yeah.
No worries. So Brian, if you want to, you can come on the panel. I believe I set you up as a moderator if you wish. If not, no worries. He was her earlier for the annual meeting. Okay, make a liar out of me. Yeah, he's still green. I show him here. Okay, well, Brian said too much background noise. Okay, guys, so a little bit of background information here. I bet Brian's watching his grandson. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, awesome. Love it. Okay, so I'm sorry, Tanisha. Yep, you go for it. Just whatever's there. Yeah, September Lunch and Learn. It is. And the individual who's going to be doing the presentation, she's from St. Luke's, and she's great. So.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. So prepare to get more information on that as we get closer to that. Some other things that are coming up in September will be our annual career panel. That will be a virtual event. That will probably be our last virtual event by way of the monthly meetings. We're very hopeful to be in person starting in October. And so we're super excited to get to see everyone. At least I am anyways, because I feel like I haven't seen anyone. So I'm really excited about that. So stay tuned for more information about the annual career panel coming up. And then finally, there will be another opportunity to join us and volunteer at the Idaho Food Bank in September. So we encourage you to check out the website and make sure that you sign up and volunteer for that. Great. All right. Well, we are so excited about tonight's speaker. We have Tim Cormier. He is the head of the Center of Excellence for Talent Development. And we're just really excited that he is here. Last night we were doing his dry run, and it was just amazing. I felt like I was in class. I was just taking it all in. And so I'm really excited to have him join us tonight. So just a summary of what he will be covering is change management. Know it, understand it, and do it. And without too much further ado, I'm going to make sure that I jump in. I do want to make sure that I highlight that you can claim one PDU for this event and that it does align with any or all of the triangle components. So make sure that you that you file for that. Some key takeaways from this session: you will understand what change management is and why it is important. You'll be able to identify the Prosci states of change, and you will understand your own change curve. So as we transition, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to kind of turn my camera off, so this way you can just see Tim and the presentation. We do want to bring to your attention that there is a Q&A portion so there's the chat, there's polls, there's people, and then there's Q&A. And we do encourage you to interact, and Tim is super interactive. And so we encourage you to interact, put your comments in the Q&A portion, and I'll make sure that Tim is aware so that we can continue the conversation. So Tim, I will stop sharing so that you can begin to share. Welcome on behalf of all PMI WIC.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And it is just an honor, a privilege, and I'm humbled to be here to be with so many just amazing project management specialists and professionals. It's just awesome to see everybody. And yeah, so please put your information in the chat, because I want to make sure that this is interactive. I'm not going to sit up here and talk for the next 45 minutes. I want to make sure that we're able to communicate back and forth. And yeah, it's great to be here and talk about change management. I do want to give a quick heads up here to make sure that I have a certification too. Last month I was certified so I'm a certified Scrum Master now, because I want to make sure that that I walk the walk and talk the talk and make sure that we're speaking the same language. So yeah, so this is what we're going to be talking about: how to make sure we have change, what's in it for us, and really understand the states of change. I want to make sure that this is interactive and we're communicating and sharing and working together. What I'd love to hear is, in your projects, what are you doing differently to manage change because of COVID? What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a collaborative tool called Jamboard. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of Jamboard before, but I put the link in the chat here. If I can have you go ahead and click into it. And if you go into the first frame, it'll be right here. What I'd love to do is I'd love to hear, your name, how long you've been doing project management, how long have you been doing this? And then over here, working remotely in your projects, what are you doing differently to manage change in this COVID environment? And so how you do this is you go over here on the left-hand side, you'll see different tools. You want to go to the fourth one down, and that'll be a sticky note. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and do a sticky note for your name, how long you've been doing project management, and then what are you doing differently? Let's learn some best practices. I want to make sure we get the expertise out here. And if you notice, can everybody hear me and see me, by the way? Okay, banana. Okay, and this is going to fill up fast. So if you notice, I do have the same thing on a couple different frames here. So if all of a sudden it starts to fill up, I think we have 21 people. Good, thanks Rod, thanks Colleen, Cheryl, Janelle, good, George. Hey George, how are you? I think we've met before. Tammy, Janelle, yeah, we're starting to fill up here. So if you want to go to frame number 2, and you can start putting your information there. Great, Karen. All right, and I'd love to hear if you can put in the next column over here, working remotely, what are you doing differently to manage change? How are you communicating it? How are you sharing it? How are you leading it? Ralph, Carla, excellent. Nice, yes, teams, collaborative tools, yes. Communicating early, often. Collaborative tools, communication. Be the master of Zoom, yes, more communication. Not much has changed, interesting. You've been doing, because you've been doing it for a while. Using more of technology like OneNote. Leading with curiosity. Interesting. I've always been virtual, so that's good. Got someone who's been in this space for a while. Thank you, Tracy. Kids have the gloves on, only the bare minimum. That's really funny. Checking in more frequently. Yes. Yeah, so I'm curious here, what are some common themes that you're hearing? What are some common themes that you're seeing is, you know, if we look at these, for more frequent and smaller changes, if we look at it, there's the technology aspect. There's been a tremendous amount of technology. We have to make sure we're using technology, leverage technology to help drive the change. People have been doing this for a while, and so they've probably been doing it. That's good. Leading with curiosity. Yeah. As opposed to a conclusion, that's great. So seeking to understand, improving your communication, your leadership and influence skills, I really like that. The whole idea of communication, we really have to make sure that we communicate more, because those hallway communications, just those random communications in the cafeteria and the cafe line, those are not there anymore. So you have to be more deliberate and more intentional with your communications. I like that. Newsletters. Yep, Trello has been excellent. I've learned about Jira and Tableau, several other technologies that I'd never heard of before. More frequent changes, more frequent taking pulses. Nice, nice. Yeah, getting those microbursts of communications. Very good. So I like that. That's a key thing here, is that in this environment, we have to look at, we do things differently in terms of using the tools, doing the communication, and how we influence others. Well done. Now, I'm going to give you some statistics here. This comes from Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway was actually a researcher at New York University. He was well known. And what he went off, and he actually started his own online university. It's pretty cool. It's called Section 4. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's still doing several research. And what he's done is he's gone back since COVID since last year with March. He's gone out and done research about when people are attending workshops, webinars, meetings, and so forth. He's looked at how many people are attending, saying that they are going to attend, and then how many people are actually attending. And so I want to see how much this resonates with you and your experience and your organizations. So what Scott has found with his research is that 4 out of 10 people who originally say they're going to attend a workshop, a meeting, a webinar, actually drop. So right up front, you have a list of 10 people, and you expect about 4 to drop. That's pretty interesting. Now, of those participants who stay, or those attendees who stay in the workshop, the meetings, the webinars, 7 out of those 10 will be called away for part of the time, meaning they'll have to attend another meeting. They're multitasking where they have to respond to an email. They'll have their boss call them, or they'll have a text or something will be sent to them where they're actually being pulled away from that experience. So I'm curious, how does this research relate to you and your project teams that you're working on, that 4 out of 10 people can miss it, and that 7 out of 10 of those participants will miss at least part of your meeting, your webinar, your workshop? If I can have you go to frame number 4, and also frame number 5, I have them in both there, 4 and 5. If you can start answering, how does this research relate to you? I'm curious, how does this research relate to you? I really want to lean into this. Do you agree, disagree? Is that what you're seeing? All right, again, that's in frames 4 and 5. Absolutely. A whole lot of multitasking going on. For the team or customer meetings, I disagree. Interesting. Agree, there's distractions. Most people are visibly multitasking during and paying a lot less attention. Initially, our project management of Institute of Western Idaho meetings, we had great turnout, but we've noticed burnout. Yeah, you're seeing that. Seems high, usually 80 and 90 attend. Good. Okay, so those aren't totally matching with yours. Good. Now here's the key thing. Surprising, I am guilty of often attending 2 meetings. Nice. People being distracted. Yeah, how much distraction. So there's a lot of distraction. There's a common theme here. And so I like this when it's all of a sudden you have to make sure you're with a customer. Yeah, it is like this is everybody has to be there. You're very focused. It is a priority. So yeah, if you're able to make it a priority, people will be able to attend. I think we need to be prepared to repeat our message. Yes, and that's going to be a common theme. I'm really glad you brought this up because that's the common idea here is that because there's so many different distractions going on, we are going to have to repeat the message multiple times in multiple formats from multiple different people. Oh, no problem. You're okay. I'm glad you're here now. And that's the idea is because there's a lot of distractions, people may only hear part of the message. So when you're doing a change, that's extremely critical that people may not be getting the message. And so that's what we want to be able to do is really make sure that people get it. Because if people don't understand why something is changing, we won't get all that buy-in, we won't get the results that we're trying to do in the first place. And I love to throw this out. I do this in every one of my workshops because I think it's so key that who cares more about your career than you do? And I really mean this and not in a trick question. It's that every one of us has to make sure that we own our career. We own what we're doing. We own our projects that we're doing. We own our communications. And it's so important to make sure that if I don't understand something or someone on my team doesn't understand that, what can I do to make sure that I support, augment, do whatever we may need to do to make sure that everybody gets on the same page. And it's taking that ownership, that accountability and responsibility to saying, you know what, I really want to be able to drive this. And I just think that's so key, and especially in the role of a project manager, that you have that ownership right up front saying, I'm going to own this and I'm going to help bring other people in, even if they are distracted. And those of you who know me, I absolutely love quotes, and this is probably one of my favorite quotes of all times, that Gandhi says, you want to make sure that you are the change you want to be in the world. And so it's interesting, when we talk about change, a lot of times we all of a sudden say, okay, change, you go first. Oh yeah, that Brian, he really needs to change. Oh, let me tell you, Cheryl, she needs to change. And when we talk about change, a lot of times we're always looking out at other people. But when we're talking, we really want to be able to put that mirror up to ourselves and say, what do I need to change? And that's where we take the ownership and say, when we're doing this communication, when we're doing this planning, whatever it may be, we need to make sure that we're saying it starts with me first. I'm going to be that person who embodies it. And so that's the piece I want to make sure that right up front, whenever you're talking about change management, it starts with you. And change is done at each individual person at a time, that being able to touch each person. And that's why change can be very difficult. Now, Prosci, what they do is they have ADKAR, that is their key methodology for change management. They're a research company, and what they've done is they put a methodology and a mindset in place to make sure that you're able to address those concerns and be able to reach out from a human-centered approach to reach each individual person and have empathy to understand what they're going through to make sure you have a process in place. And really, their model, they want to make sure there's knowledge transfer and make sure that it's all about competencies. Make sure you're able to have those skills, those capabilities to be able to drive and own change. And that's what we're going to be looking at here. And when we're talking about change management, it really isn't a flavor of the month. A lot of times people will say, oh yeah, I've heard this. You know, I've heard servant leadership, I've heard agile, I've heard waterfall, lean startup, whatever it may be, design thinking. Oh, this is just another one of those flavors of the month. Well, in reality, no, it's not. These all go together. These are leadership tools, leadership techniques where you're able to influence others. And when we're talking about change, because of people, process, and technology, change is speeding up. It is completely going faster. We're seeing more and more dynamic changes happening all the time. I mean, just think about this right now. How many of us were as fluent in Trello, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Jamboard, I mean, all the different tools, last year at this time? There's so much change happening. Now, one of the things I do want to make sure we level set here is when we're talking about change management, it's all about the individual level. How does this relate to me? Now, I know in IT, a lot of times we talk about change management, and many times this is the change control. That all of a sudden we say, we are going to be switching over from this technology to this technology, this software to this software on this date. We're going to be going from this process to this process. That is extremely important. Let me make sure, absolutely, that change control is extremely critical. It's extremely important. That's not really what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is when we switch over from this technology to this technology on this date, we all of a sudden say, how do I do my job differently? How does that impact me? We want to be able to understand that mindset of each individual employee where they're saying, okay, as we switch over, and they say, do I have the skill sets? Is there going to be a different productivity as we switch over? Do I know how to do it in the right way? That's what we want to be able to do, is be able to get into the mindset, get into the capabilities, the skill set of that individual during the change. I want to pause right there for a second and make sure we're on the same page. So are there any questions, Tanisha, are there any questions in the chat or anything in the Q&A?
Not yet. Not that I see in either. There's comments for sure. People are saying, "Boy, that's for sure." They're loving the Jamboard. So there's lots of comments in the chat, but no questions yet.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page when we're talking about change management. So thank you so much. All right. So when we're talking about change, again, this is coming down to a communication, a leadership, an influence tool for each one of you. And it starts with having senders and receivers with a change message. Now, no two changes are the same. This is quite a bold statement. I would love to hear your responses in the chat. No two changes are ever the same. And I'm curious, why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? If you can just respond in the chat. No two changes are the same. I'm curious. Thank you, Karen. Yeah. Yep, varying stakeholders. People are different motivations. Every person is affected differently, absolutely. Environmental factors, always a different starting point. Nice, excellent responses. That is excellent. And that's the idea here, is that even if you've done this before, so for instance, in my previous role, I helped work with Brian and several other project managers as we transitioned from the traditional waterfall to Agile. And in my current role right now, I'm literally doing the same thing. It's like deja vu, moving from the traditional waterfall to Agile. However, two completely different experiences. Yes, we're using Kanban boards and we're talking about Scrum with Scrums and all of that. But you know what? It is so different. And that's the idea, even though, because it's the people, the process, the technology, the motivators, everything that you're saying, even though there may be some commonalities, there are different. And that's why it's important to be able to have these types of methodologies to be able to help you get through that, to get people on the same page. Now, every change, it can be viewed from the different perspective of a sender and a receiver. Now, a sender is anyone who is providing information about the change. Now, a lot of times you as a project manager, the sender could be the executive, could be the key stakeholder. They're giving you information about that change. They're saying, this needs to change. We're going to implement this software. We're going to implement this technology, get this done. They're giving you this information. Now, the receiver is somebody who's receiving information. This sounds pretty simple. You know, here's somebody who's giving information, here's somebody receiving this information. It sounds so simple. But a lot of times as a project manager, you have to wear many different hats to make sure that you're getting people to get on the same page. So all of a sudden the sender will be giving you this information. Here is the executive, the stakeholder, whomever it may be. They're focusing on the business issues, and here is the need to change. We need to make sure we do this. We have too much downtime with this tool. We need to make sure that we have our customers having more access to more data, whatever it may be. They're focusing on the business issues and the needs for change. Now, here's the thing is the receiver many times will be focusing on the personal implications and the risk. You know, how does this relate to me? And what happens with you as the project manager, you will become the sender because you're getting that information and then you're sending that information. Many times you're the middle person. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? I want to make sure that that resonates. Yes, Barbara, people hear things differently. Fear and fearlessness of change. Yeah. And so many times you can be that middle person, that go between. What ends up happening is what the sender says and what the receiver hears are two very different messages. In other words, the message being sent is not always being the message being received. The message about the business issues, the need to change, cannot be heard because of the fears, the implications what someone may have to their roles. Okay, so for instance, here's a leader could be sitting down with a team saying, you know what, we need to become more automated. We need to streamline our processes. We want to make sure we improve our customer experience. We want to make sure we're a more innovative organization. Now notice the leader, or could even in this case be you as a project manager, be sitting there very enthusiastic, happy, you're really engaged about this change. But everyone has their own way of accepting and literally dealing with that change, being able to interpret what's happening here. And the idea is that all change is personal. All change is personal. Again, the leader can be really happy, saying how excited they are. When the employee goes home, this is what they could share with their family. I may not have a job, the company is in trouble. They are trying to do away with my job. So what just happened here? What just happened? We said we need to automate things. We need to make sure we're streamlining, we're improving our customer experience. When all of a sudden you hear automation, what do employees hear? I don't know if I have a job. You know, if we automate things, well, what am I going to do? That's where change management comes in, right at that point. That's where a person needs to be able to understand, how does this relate to me? What do I need to do differently in the future? And as a project manager, you may not have all those details. You may have to be that conduit, that facilitator, that go-between between the stakeholder and the employee. Because if you don't get that, what ends up happening is you might be having people who are going half-heartedly or may not be as engaged in the change as they could be. And it could be unconscious that they're doing that also, because if they have that fear. And so we assume a lot of times that a dialogue had taken place. So the dialogue is a discussion between, you know, Carlene and me, where we're both having that discussion. I'm asking her questions, she's asking me questions. We're listening, we're having discussion back and forth. We're challenging each other in a professional, respectful way, but we're having that discussion. And many times we think that's taken place and that the message being sent is the message being received, but many times that may not happen. Unfortunately, that may not happen. So again, you can have the leader or the project manager many times could be spending 95% of the conversation talking about the business impact. How are we going to improve our business? How are things going to be automated? And how are we going to be more innovative? But only 5%, you know, again, if we're lucky here, about how it relates to each individual employee. So
Tim, we do have a question in the chat.
Perfect.
It says, it's from Tammy. It says, what do you see as differences between a change manager and an organizational readiness role?
Oh, outstanding. No, I would say right now, great question, Tammy. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And what I would say is that an organizational readiness role, they are a change manager. I think that is that would be the umbrella, is that is part of what they do, is make sure that they embrace change and help the organization get to change. Now, unfortunately, many organizations don't have an organizational readiness role, so that's another hat that that a project manager many times has to wear. Does that answer your question, Tammy? I want to make sure that I didn't leave you hanging. Perfect. Thank you. Great question. So this is me with my daughters and my niece. We have a couple acres and out there in Cuna, and if I'm all of a sudden, and yes, I love ties and bow ties. I'm that guy. Yes. This was one time when I was coming home from work, and if all of a sudden there's a change going on in the workplace, do I all of a sudden go home and say, "Oh, Adeline and Kira, I'm so glad to see you. You know, in an effort for our organization to be more innovative and have more customer focus, you know, we're going to become more automated. You know, we're going to make sure we automate and do away with all our paper process. We're going to make sure we're streamlining our processes." No, that's not what I say to them. What I end up starting to think about is, do I have a job? And here's the thing, we're not robots. All of a sudden we're going to start thinking these things. Do I have a job here? And if I come home, I may not be that smiley, happy, gregarious person I want to be, and be the father to my family. And that's the thing, is that we carry this with us. We have to be able to address this. Those are the implications that we want to make sure we're able to touch each person. And I'm so glad, Tammy, you brought up the idea of an organizational readiness role. Is the organization ready for this? They may have the appetite, but do they have the systems, the processes, and the skill sets ready for us to be able to embrace this? Otherwise, we'll have people who could be impacted in a very negative way. And the idea here is that the consequence is that much of the key information about how we could have a streamlined process, how we could have more upturn, whatever it may be, it's not heard. We literally don't hear it because we're too busy worried about our job security or fear about the change. Now, I'm curious here. I'd like you to go ahead and go into the Jamboard, and I'd love to hear, how does this information relate to you and your role as a project manager in your organization? And I'm curious, what does resistance and fear of change look like in your organization? And those are on frames number 6 and 7. If I can have you go ahead, what might resistance of change look like in your organization, and how does this information, how does it relate to you? I'm curious, you and your role as a project manager in your organization. Okay, frames 6 and 7. Not doing anything, yeah. Not embracing it, lack of engagement. Poor user acceptance, yep. Tailoring the message, nice. Distracting talks, yep. The meeting after the meeting, the pushback. Bad talk, oh, who likes this software? That software does no good. And then they'll go out there and do research on the internet and say it doesn't work and say all the ideas, yes. Repeat, yes, rinse and repeat. You've got to do the same message again. Forgetting accountability, very powerful, yes. And that's the idea here, is we want to make sure that we're able to get to each individual person. We definitely have fear of job loss whenever we hear change. It is our role to help communicate that innovation helps us do our job, what we have to do, not less. Excellent. Yeah. Results in lack of trust in the project manager. Yes, all of a sudden the project manager is the bad guy. Ooh, you're the one who's trying to do away with my job. Yes. So all of these horrible things can happen. It can be quite scary. That's why having a change management approach is so key, because you can have a delayed implementation, not as much buy-in, not as much execution. It could cost more. All of those things can happen. Thank you so much. So the role of the project manager is making sure that they're a leader, and you are a leader and influential employee in your organization. You play such a key role. I can't stress that enough. You are someone who helps drive strategy. You are the person who really helps the employee engagement. Your role is so key. And one of the things I want to make sure that I think is so key is that expect resistance. It's normal, natural for people to resist, to not understand, because they have a fear of how's this going to impact my role, or how do I have this, do I have the skill set for this? You know, and again, it can be anyone in the organization. It doesn't matter if it's a senior officer, a frontline supervisor, entry-level employee. Everybody feels that. You know, they'll feel they're an employee first, and then whatever their role is later. And this is a tool that you can use to increase your influence. Now, here's the thing. What happens if through automation, there is going to be a decrease in that role? Well, use that as a tool. Have that dialogue. Get the buy-in. Make sure that people are able to say, you know, do I have transferable skills? It's better to be upfront, to be able to understand that, and make sure that you're able to understand, and make sure the leaders are being as transparent as possible right up with you. And that's where you, as the leader of a project manager, having the courage to be able to have that conversation with leaders, to be able to say, is there going to be a decrease in any roles? Will this negatively impact our headcount? Will people need to transfer to a different role? And sometimes that happens. I mean, that could happen. So as the project manager, sometimes having that courage to have that conversation with the leader, the sooner we can get that out, the better. And this is what you do, is you literally are creating a pool of shared meaning. This is from the crucial conversation language, to make sure you're on the same page. You get that pool of shared meaning to make sure you're on the same page with your teams, with your peers, up, down, across, to make sure that you're on the same page for that change. Questions or comments of that? Because that's a pretty heavy role each one of you carry. Questions or comments? Okay. And this is what I've heard a couple times, and I'm so glad I've heard this here, is that in communication, especially when you're doing a change, you need to hear the same message 5 to 7 times in multiple formats from multiple leaders before people truly understand it. Before they say, oh, I'm the one who needs to change? Oh, you're talking about me? Because many times when you're talking about a change, people always think it's going to be somebody else. It's going to happen to them later, or they're not part of it. Oh, it's that department. They're doing some changes. Oh, it's that role. But again, before they truly understand, it's me. So we need to do that. A tool to make sure that you're able to do this, and this is what Prosci came up with, which is just an awesome tool, is what's called the states of change, where you're able to get to each individual person. That when you're talking about any change, anybody who's being impacted, again, this could be inside your department, inside the organization, and sometimes even outside the organization, we need to communicate this, that there are 3 different types of states of change, and then you talk about your benefits. Now, where do you think you start? Do you think you start with a current state, a transition state, future state, or benefits when you're talking about a change? This is my preference. I'm gonna share this with you, and this is my preference. You can do each one of these states to start with, but I'm gonna say you start with your future state. The reason why I say future state is that this is your blue dot. This is where you want to go. This is where things are aligned and things are working out well. Okay, so I'd like you to go ahead and go in the Jamboard and go to frames number 8. the ocho on number 8, and I'd like you to put down, when you hear future state, what pops into your head? I'm curious. What do you think of when you hear future state? What's 1 or 2 words that pop into your head? A future state of change. What does a future state mean to you? Yeah, when will we be done? Nice. How are things going to be better? Where are we going? Sure. Change complete. Nice. New way of doing things. Sure. How much will it cost? Yes. New, better, etc. Yeah, and it gets exciting. Getting that. What's that impact? Nice. Nice. Now, here's the thing. This is that excitement, getting people to understand what it is. Now, why do you think it's so important to connect the dots to the future state to business results? Why do you think that's so important, that people are understanding that in our future state, we're going to have increased business results? And I'm seeing some good things here that are kind of answering it too. We'll be better in the future. It's better, exciting, improvement, profitability. Yes. How we can get close as it should be, the target. Yes. And so it's that blue dot, the red mountain, whatever it may be that you want to be able to get to. Nice. Yeah, the engagement. We want to make sure whatever that engagement may be. Excellent, excellent. So that's what I highly encourage you start with your future state. Once you modify, you talk about your future state, and then you go and you say, okay, what we want to work on our current state. And our current state, this is the good, the bad, and the ugly, whatever the current state may be. So I'm curious, what pops your head? And this is on frame number 10. What do you think of when you hear current state? What pops in your head when you hear current state? And this is on frame number 10. The status quo, the baby is ugly. Yes, I can call my baby ugly, but nobody else can, right? The status quo, some good, some bad, could be better. How we have always done it, where we're stuck. Yes, if nothing changes. Looking for gaps. Nice, perfect. That's a great astute observation there, because you're beginning to start seeing the gaps. Things are good. Why change? Yes, if we don't get that buy-in, why are we changing if things are going well here? What are those lost opportunities? Are there some things that are obsolete, outdated? Now, here is something that's really, really key. I want you to think about this here. How might a leader, so a key stakeholder in your case here, how can that current state be different than employee or a project manager's perception of the current state? How might a leader say, here's our current state, how might that be different than employee? And that's a key point here. Why do you think that may be? And that's on frame number 11. It might be good for you, but bad for me. Yes. The board of director involvement provides closer view. Yeah, they have a different, very strategic. They value different things. Bingo. That's the point. The leader may not be in the trenches. Yes. Leader doesn't have the detailed perspective. Different perspective, different priorities. The leader's not, they operate in different worlds. Yes, high level. And that's many times where people get stuck, is that point right here. People can get excited about a future state. Everybody wants to make sure, yes, let's work smoother. Never underestimate the idea of if things are things may be broken, manual, whatever they may be, but you know what? I know how to do it. I know what that current state is. I'll be able to get this done. We've all had this. My wife and I have that box in the garage that we have to step over every day, whenever we go out there. But you know what? It's too heavy to move. Until somebody trips over it and gets hurt or something, we're not going to move it. It's the same thing in an organization. We have these current states and current processes that if we don't, until someone gets hurt or someone actually says we're going to change this, people will continue doing those processes. And this is where you want to make sure you call it out. where are we? Good, bad, ugly, and make sure that people understand that. The next step is, and again, this is my preference. You can go in whatever area, whatever direction you want, but I prefer you go from future state to current state, and then we say, what are the benefits if we go from our current state to our future state? What are the benefits we're going to get? What are we going to reap as a result of those benefits? So I'm curious, when you hear benefits, and this is now on frame number 12, what do you think of when you hear benefits? When you hear benefits, what pops in your head? And we're not talking HR benefits. These are benefits. Ah, the WIFM, what's in it for me? The good, the cost savings. Yes. The better, the faster. This is the ROI, the actual ROI, the numbers. Yes. Better, faster, cheaper. Yes. This is where you want to be elevating everyone's role and work. Nice. That's where we want to be able to put that information in there. Now, I do want to let you know, this is interesting because a lot of times people will get stuck when they're doing this. They'll say, well, what's the difference between a benefit and a future state? So let me give you an example here. I want to lose 20 pounds. Is that a benefit or is that a future state? I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm curious. Both, yeah, both. As a future state could be a nice. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. How will I lose 20 pounds? Improving how I eat, increasing my exercise, getting better sleep, you know, all of those things. That's my future state. Okay, that's what I'm doing. A benefit of that is that I'm losing weight. Now, it's the same thing that happens in the organization. A lot of times people say, okay, we need you to make sure we increase revenue. Well, wonderful. And make a better employee experience. Have a better customer experience. We want to make sure we have more engaged customers. Well, that's a future state. But what are the behaviors that'll help get us there? That's our future state. And a lot of times that is the right conversation to have because you're able to get on the right page there. We're able to discuss that and have ideas come together. So that is one of the tricky areas that I hear people say is the benefits in the future state. But again, think about it that way. 20 pounds, that's a benefit of what? Of a better diet, exercise, and sleeping habits. Okay, those are my future states. Same thing in your work. You want to think about that. How am I going to increase the revenue, increase customer satisfaction? Does that make sense? I want to make sure we're on the same page because that's a really good discussion that you can have with people. And I have had people really, you know, get knocked down, drag out fights before. Thank you, Michelle. Where they said benefit, future state benefit, you know. Now the last one here is the transition state. This is what's called the messy middle, the transition state. So I'm curious if I can have you go here to frame number 14. What do you think of when you hear something is in transition? What does transition mean to you? I'm curious. When you hear something is in a transition state. Interim, nice. Unstable, very good, yes. Not done, it's mixed. Yeah, has this happened with a pain? Yes, that's exactly right. Working towards something, nice. Has anyone ever had this before where you have duplicate processes, where all of a sudden you're going to keep this process, you know, you have this old process, you have the new process, but you continue having your old process just to check. You know, we just want to check. Well, at some point, you have to stop that old process and say, we're going to stop it right here. Okay. And that's part of that transition where you're able to have that communication. Yeah, a lot of times that can be not pretty. The system under discussion. Right. Yes. Why do you think it's so important for leaders and project managers to communicate the transition state? I'm curious. Why do you think it's so important to communicate the unstable, the interim, the mix, the not done, the working towards something? Why do you think it's so important for you to be able to communicate that? And that's on frame number 15. Acknowledge the pain. Yes, exactly. Transparency. People from drawing their own conclusions. It's where most of the churn. That's exactly right. That's so true. Prepared. Need to manage it. Get the folks on board. Demonstrating support. Help clear the confusion. Absolutely. Yes, get it out there. And that's why it's such a key thing. Again, the future state is fun, it's exciting. A lot of times we can get stuck in that current state because we really don't understand what that current state is and how long are we going to continue to do those concurrent processes. And that's where we can get stuck in a transition. And here's the thing is, if we don't truly acknowledge this, we're not going to reap the benefits of a change that we wanted from in the first place. And here's the idea is that in reality, each impacted employee has his or her own state of change. For instance, you can have Tanisha in a future state. You can have Michelle in a current state, and you can have Brian in a transition state. Everybody can be in a different state, and they can be literally working right next to them, right next to each other. And it comes down to, how am I doing my job today, but how am I going to do it differently after this change is implemented, after this software is executed upon? How am I going to do my job differently? And that the future state, it's always going to be a moving target, because once you start achieving some of that future state, the future state all of a sudden becomes the current state. And then we're going to need to have a new future state. And that's where change management comes in, because the future state is always moving. We always want to continue to have new business results. And if we want to get that strategic alignment, we have to get the people to get the buy-in, because it's always a moving target. Again, I love this quote to really illustrate that all change is personal. That change is hard at first, messy in the middle, but it can be gorgeous at the end. And I just want you to think about this. With your particular projects, yours that you're going on, or things that you're working on in your organization, where are you? And where do you see the rest of the organization? And how can you use this information to help drive change and help support it and get that strategic alignment? And to illustrate that, one of the things I'd love to see is on the last two slides here, on frame 16, I'd love to hear what's one thing that you've learned and how are you going to apply this information on the job? I'd love to hear, as a result of having this change management discussion, what's one thing that you've learned and how are you going to apply this on the job? If I can have you go to frame number 16, please. When in doubt, communicate. Changes. Yes, change is individual. When in doubt, communicate. So how are we going to apply that on the job? You can't over communicate change. It's so true. Five to seven times. Nice. 5 to 7 times. Another one. Good. More one-on-ones. Excellent. Definitely communicate. All right. And that's it. You can't start too early. Any of the impacted parties need to hear about it as soon as they can. And when it comes right down to it, people are always going to say, no matter when you tell somebody about a change, what they're going to say is, why didn't you tell me earlier? Why couldn't I have heard about this earlier? You as a project manager have probably thought that yourself several times, saying, why didn't I hear about this earlier? How could you have let me? Why couldn't I have heard about this at an earlier stage? So I think I went over my time here. I apologize for being a little bit long on that. I went a couple minutes over.
No, this was great. You're like right on time. You're doing great.
All right. That is the end of my presentation here. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Janelle. All right. So any other questions, comments, or clarifications?
So Tim, I don't know if you're reading the chat, but it's excellent presentation, right? Applicable content, lots of good stuff. I'm a retired project manager, and I enjoyed this presentation because I think that you can still apply this even when you're not working in a professional position, right? I still have to work as a volunteer. I still, work with individuals, work with teams, and I could really work on the over communication part because I feel like a pretty clear communicator. I think everybody got this, and probably not. And I'm also I hate rework, so I'm like, oh, I don't want to over communicate. Oh, I don't want to beat this dead horse. But it kind of seems like maybe you're not really beating the dead horse, right? You're just bringing it home in a way that it resonates with everyone, right? And everybody listens differently.
That's so true. Thank you, Cheryl. And that would be one of the things, the exercise, what I love to do, whiteboard it or to Jamboard it out with people and say, what does that future state look like when you're looking at your project, to make sure that you, and by the way, doing this frequently, it's not just a one and done, but frequently throughout your project, what have changed? Are there new people part of this? Stakeholders? Has the target shifted? But literally saying, what is it we want to accomplish, and making sure you have that buy-in and getting the right stakeholders in.
Awesome. Well, this was so good. So much valuable information, and you made it like easy to understand, right? And to understand even how to take it back and how to apply it. So this was really, really good information. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. And yeah, I've been certified with Prosci now for going on 10 years now, I guess. And it's a life skill.
Yeah, I have my Prosci certification, but I've only had mine for about 3 years or 4 years now, three years. So yeah, but this is like a whole nother spin on it. It seems like it's so next level than how I've been using it. This is taking it to the next step. So this is really, really good, really helpful.
Well, thank you. And again, I can't say this enough. As project managers, you play such a key role in your organization and in people's lives. You are such an influential leader, and I applaud you on what you're doing, and just keep up the great work.
Awesome. I just have a couple of housekeeping issues. So Tim, you had emailed me your presentation, but I think you said you were going to make some changes to it. Should I use?
I'll send you the one.
Okay.
Edits.
Perfect. And so as Tanisha always reminds everyone, we will have copies of the recording and Tim's presentation emailed out to you in the next day or so. So, yep. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And Brian, thank you for, he was the one who originally asked me to do this. And Cheryl, thank you too.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, for sharing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you.
All right. Good night.